Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. My name is Rabbi Dennis Sasso, and I am delighted to welcome you to our Shabbat morning services at Congregation Beth-El, both those of you who worship with us in person to celebrate Elio Dorman's becoming a bar mitzvah, and those who join us also to celebrate Shabbat and Elio's becoming a bar mitzvah virtually. I call your attention to the website www.bez613, where you can access Shabbat virtual resources, including pages from the prayer book and the Torah reading that will be chanted and read on this Shabbat morning. On the bima with me is my colleague, Rabbi Jenny Greenspan, and accompanying us musically on the organ is Charles Manning. Cantor Melissa Cohen is not able to join us this weekend, and I interrupt my sabbatical on this Shabbat to support Rabbi Jenny and especially to celebrate with Elio and his proud family on this special Shabbat. So whether you are with us in person or joining us virtually, we invite you to welcome our Shabbat prayers of peace and joy. We open with the words of Matovu on page 101 of the Lev Shalem prayer book. Matovu, a collection of biblical verses that give voice to the joy of coming together for worship. Matovu ohaleha Yaakov, how beautiful are your tents, your dwelling places, O Israel.
Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha
I'd like to invite our bar mitzvah, Elio Dorman, to lead us on page 103 and 104 with the chanting of the Birchot HaShahar, the morning blessings for the beginning of a new day. Page 103, continuing on to page 104.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasekvi v'nach lechavchin ben yom uvein laila.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani besalmo.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben horim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivri.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbir sharumi.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asuri.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kafufi.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamikein mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol sorki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten layaif koach.
Amen. We turn to page 122. Having given thanks for personal gifts, we now continue with a celebration of the world in which we live, and Elio goes back to the bima, second base, to chant Baruch She'amar, page 122.
Baruch Shamar V'Kaya Haolam. Baruch Hu. Baruch Oseh V'Reshit.
Baruch Omer Ve'oseh.
Baruch Gozar U'Mekayem.
Baruch
Merachim al haaretz. Baruch Merachim al chabriyot.
Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov Lireyav.
Baruch Chai La'ad V'Kayal Lanetzah.
Baruch Odeh Umatzil.
Baruch Shemo.
Amen. Now you can come back, Elio, and join us from your seat for the rest of the morning service, which now continues on page 141. Rabbi Jenny will chant the closing verses of Psalm 150, verses of praise. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, Beth-EL Tzalei Shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Beth-EL Tzalei Trua. Kol hanshama tehallel. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kol hanshama tehallel. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
This psalm, which closes the Psukei de Zimra, the verses from the Psalms portion of the service, introduces the morning service, which picks up on the theme, Kol haneshama techallel, let every living soul, let everything that breathes, praise God. And we continue on page 145, Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu, beruach kol basar tefaeru tromem zikrecha malkeinu tamid. The soul of all that lives praises your name, Adonai, our God. The spirit of all flesh exalts you, our sovereign, always. We will praise, acclaim, and honor your name, fulfilling David's words, Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol kravai et shem kodsho. Bless Adonai, my soul. Let every fiber of my being celebrate God's holy name. We turn to page 147, and Rabbi Jenny introduces the morning liturgy, Shochein ad Marom.
Shochein ad marom v'kadosh shemo, v'katuv raninu tzadikim ba'Adonai, laisharim nava tehila, befi sharim titalal, uvdivrei tzadikim titbarach, uvilshon chasidim titromam, uvekerev kedoshim titkadash, uvmachalot rivevot amcha beit Yisrael merina. Shechein cholvat kol hayitzurim lefanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu, lehodot, lehalel, leshabeach, lefaher, leromim, lehader, levarech, lealehu, lekales, al kol divrei shirot betishbechot, David ben Yishai, avdecha meshichecha, yishtabach shimcha lahad malkeinu, ha'el hamelech. Brachot vehodaot me'ata ve'ad olam, Baruch ata Adonai, El melech gadol betishbachot, El haodot, Adon haniflaot, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים.
Please rise as Elio continues with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 148.
Yitbarach Yitbarach v'yitkadash Shemai Rabbah
Amen.
Be'amadi Ivrach Yirteh Be'amlich. Wait, I told him this.
B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'gala u'vizman kariv
Ve'imeru
Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'le'olmei olmaya Yitbarach.
Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yipa'ar ve'yitramam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yitadleh ve'yitla'aha'al shemei dekudesha
Berichu
Le'ela min kol birchata ve'shirata
Tushbekata v'nechemata
Damiran be'alma.
ve'imeru
Amen. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol.
Praise are you, Adonai, sovereign of time and space, who forms light, creates darkness, and brings harmony to all creation. Please be seated. Continue on page 151 and join in the medieval song of creation, El Adon.
El Adon al kol ha'ma'asim baruch umvorach befi kol neshama godlo v'tuvo malei olam da'at u'tvuna sovevim oto hamitkal chayot hakodesh v'neda v'chavod al hamerkava
Zechut
Mishor livnei chiso Chesed berachamim livnei kevodo Tovim mehorot shebara Eloheinu Yetzaram beda'at bevina uvaskel koach ugvura natan bahem Liot moshlim bekerev tevel Meleim ziv ufikim noga Nae zivam vechol ha'olam Semeichim v'tzeitam v'sasim bevoam Osim ve'em aretzon konam Pe'er v'chavod notnim lishmot zola verina lezecher malchuto kara Lashemesh vayizrach or ra'a vehitkin surat halvana Shevach notnim lo kol tzevam aram tiferet ukedula serafim vehofanim bechayot hakodesh.
I'd like to invite you to read responsively in English with me the poem on the left margin of page 151 by Rabbi Harold Kushner, a dear friend and colleague. it gives expression in contemporary language to the hopes of this medieval prayer that we have just read. So I will read up to each period, completion of each sentence, and then you read the next sentence. Let the rain come and wash away the ancient grudges, the bitter hatreds held and nurtured over generations.
Let the rain wash away the memory of the hurt, the neglect. Then let the sun come out and fill the sky with rainbows.
Let the warmth of the sun heal us wherever we are broken.
Let it burn away the fog so that we can see each other clearly.
And let the warmth and brightness of the sun melt our selfishness.
So that we can share the joys and feel the sorrows of our neighbors.
And let the light of the sun be so strong that we will see all people as our neighbors.
Let the earth, nourished by rain, bring forth flowers to surround us with beauty.
And let the mountains teach our hearts to reach upward to heaven.
Amen.
Amen. Now we give thanks for the gift of Torah with the closing words of the Ahavat Ravah prayer on page 154. Ve'keraftanu.
וקרבתנו לשמך הקדוש אלא באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני
Baruch hu Baruch Shemo.
הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Amen. Blessed are you, eternal God, who has called upon your people Israel to proclaim the oneness of your name. We rise for the Shema, page 155.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
Continue silently. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. Remember then to observe my mitzvot and be holy unto your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I, the Eternal, am your God in truth.
Adonai Elohechem, Amen.
Please be seated, and we turn to page 158 and continue with the prayer that gives thanks for the redemption from bondage, Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, shira chadasha shibechu ge'ulim l'shimcha al sefat hayam, yachad kulam hodu ve'imliku ve'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, tzor Yisrael kuma ve'ezra
Yisrael.
ופתחנו מחר יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
גאל ישראל.
Amen. We continue as we stand for the Amidah. Begins on page 159. We will chant together through page 161 and then continue silently.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot V'imaot Umevii Goel Livnei V'neihem Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai Mechaye metim ata Rav le'hoshia Mechalkel chayim v'chesed Mechaye metim v'rachamim rabim Somech noflin ve'rofei cholim Umatir asurim umekayim emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al gevurot umidom melach melech meimir umechaye umatzniach Yeshua ve'ne'emanata lehachayot metin Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye hametim Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam Keshem shemakdishim oto bishmei marom Kakatuv al yad neviecha Vekara zeh el zeh ve'amar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai tzevot Melo kol haaretz kevodo Az bekol ra'ash gadol Adir vechazak mashmi'im kol Mitnasim leomat serafim Leomatam baruch yomeru Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo Mimekomecha malkeinu tofia V'timloch aleinu Ki mechakim anachnu lach Matai timloch betzion Bekarov v'yaminu leolam va'ed tishkon Titkadal v'titkadash Betoch Yerushalayim yircha Ledor v'ador Ulenetzach netzachim Ve'einu tirena Tirena malchutecha Kadavar hamur Beshirei uzecha Al yedei David Meshiach tzidkecha Yimloch Adonai leolam Elohai Tzion Ledor vador לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גואלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גואלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול, כי אל מלך גדול, וקדוש אתה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גואלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך הוא ברוך שמו.
האל, האל הקדוש.
We continue silently through page 166 with the words of tradition and with the meditations of our own hearts. Sim shalom ba'olam, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Grant peace to the world, goodness and blessing, grace, love, and compassion for us and for the people Israel. May it please you to bless your people Israel and all the world at every time and in every season with your gift of shalom. Amen. May be seated. Service continues on page 167 with the Kaddish Shalem.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
לעלמא תברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשא בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו.
Amen.
תיקה בצד הון ובתהון, זכור ישראל, קודמה והוני וישמעיה ואמרו.
Amen.
יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו. אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Some of you may have joined Rabbi Jenny earlier today for her explanation and teaching on this week's Torah portion online. You can go to our virtual resources for Shabbat and look at that Devar Torah, that explanation. And also, for those of you who are joining us virtually, please turn to our resources online for the readings of the Torah and Haftarah. This Shabbat's Torah portion is entitled Bechar. It is from the closing chapters of the book of Leviticus, Vayikra, and Elio is going to be teaching us about that selection. In summary, the point that I would like to make is that this portion makes it clear that from a biblical point of view, religion is not just what we generally call religion. Because as we read this Torah portion, we discover how much economics and social ethics are at the heart of biblical legislation and the unfolding Jewish tradition. This portion entitled Behar, which means on the mountain, Moses speaking from and being spoken at the mountain, describes two key concepts, the sabbatical and the Jubilee years. This is not the rabbinical sabbatical, but this is the full sabbatical of the land and the institution that sets free ancient people that were in servitude, the institution that allows the land to replenish and reconstitute itself by allowing to grow fallow with no working of the land. These are ancient social practices that are aimed at rectifying social ills through the regulation of the productivity of the land, the cancellation of debts, the fair treatment of laborers, and the release of indentured servants. So this contains laws about obligations to share the produce of the land with the disenfranchised and the poor. It tells us about the care of people and the care of the land. In this portion, we find the verse which is inscribed in the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, proclaim liberty throughout the land and unto all the inhabitants. Well, next week's sequel to this reading is entitled Bechukotai. And often these two portions are read together, but since this is a leap year in the Jewish calendar, which means that we have added a month, we have to separate some readings to fill the 4 extra Shabbatot. Next year we go back to a non-leap year and some of the Torah portions become combined again. And that is why, by the way, why this coming year the High Holy Days are, as we say, late. End of September, early October, because we have pushed it back with an additional month to make up for the difference between the lunar year and the solar year. Anybody interested in astronomy here? How many days are in a this is aside from my notes. How many days in the lunar year? So how many days does a lunar month have? 29 and a half. How many days, so if you multiply that by 12, what do you get? Quick. 354. Okay, so what's the problem? We are short 11, more or less, days, right? So that is made up every second or third year by adding an extra month to the Hebrew calendar, so that in a cycle of years, we have perfect correspondence between the solar and the lunar calendars. Let's step back, because I want to say a few words about next week's Torah portion, since I am not going to be with you for that Shabbat, and because I think that this has a lesson, particularly at this time of the year. The Torah portion highlights a little word, which I think is one of the most important words in our religious vocabulary. The word in Hebrew is im, and in English it translates as if. If you observe the statutes that are herein contained, then this will happen. If you fail to observe the moral law, then these are the consequences. Now, of course, the word if can be used as an excuse. If I only had time, if I only were wealthier, if I were luckier. That's what I would call the irreligious if, the cop-out if. However, if can be used as a challenge, as an opportunity. Theodor Herzl, the founder of Zionism, said, "If you will it, it is no dream. If you wish to harvest, you need to plant. If you wish to live serenely, it pays to live morally. If you want to do well on your tests, it pays to study." This is what I call the religious if. How often do we all say, if? Well, I find it significant that in English, the middle letters of the word life are I-F. And what is the Hebrew word for life? Chayim. And what are the middle letters of the word Hayim? Yud, Yud. And what does Yud, Yud spell in abbreviation? The name of God. The middle of Hayim is the name of God. The middle of the English version, life, is if. God is the if of life. God is that reality that moves us to turn what is into what ought to be. Potentiality into actuality. If science pursues its investigations without social responsibility, it would be disastrous. If we build an economy guided only by productivity and profits with no attention to the welfare of citizens, our society will fall and crush us. If we abuse the earth, we will pay the consequences by polluting the environment for generations to come. This week's Torah portion contains a striking admonition among the ifs. If says, "If you walk in my commandments, you shall eat your bread and be satisfied." If you walk in my commandments, you shall eat your bread and be satisfied. That is the reward. Remarkably, the consequence of ignoring the law, of not walking in God's commandments, is not, "You shall not eat." If you do not walk in my commandments, you shall not eat. It says, if you do not walk in my commandments, you shall eat and not be satisfied. The Torah would teach us that the material opposite of having bread is not having bread, but the moral opposite is not having bread, but having it and not enjoying it. The blessing is to eat with satisfaction. The curse is to eat, or for some to eat, without satisfaction. And in a powerful metaphor, this portion contains the teaching that failure to live in keeping with the moral law will cause us to be frightened, and this is the quote, by the sound of a dry leaf driven by the wind. you will be frightened by the sound of a dry leaf. Now this verse inspired the title of our first rabbi at Beth-El Tzedek, Milton Steinberg's book, one of the most beautiful novels in American literature, As a Driven Leaf. As a driven leaf. Some people live lives that are plagued by the sounds of driven leaves, fears, guilt, remorse, the hypochondria, not of disease, but of dis-ease, of not being at peace with ourselves, with our loved ones, of being out of touch with our conscience. And so the Torah comes to remind us that happiness and wealth are not ultimately dependent on stuff, on power, on acquisition and control. It is not doing well that is ultimately important, but the contentment and the confidence of doing good. That is the lesson of this week's Torah portion. Whenever I read this Torah portion, I'm reminded of another if teaching. I'm sure you're many familiar with Rudyard Kipling's If, 19th century British poet. And I'd like to read a selection of this as a message to our bar mitzvah, to our confirmands in the weeks ahead, and to our graduates at this season of the year. I invite you to look at it if you haven't read it recently. It needs a little bit of gender-inclusive language along the way, but it is a powerful message. He says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the earth and all that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. If he were Jewish, he would have said, you'll be a mensch. You'll be a mensch. And of course, we would include our sons and our daughters and everybody, every person of character. Shabbat Shalom. We are now going to turn to the beginning of the Torah service in the prayer book, page 168.
Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai uz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
invite you to rise as the doors of the ark are opened by Grandfather P.A. Nilhagen.
ויהי בנשוא אהרון ויאמר משה קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה
The memory of Grandfather Fred Dorman blesses this moment. This is the Torah, Israel's covenant of truth and righteousness, transmitted through the long generations of our faith, from Moses to the prophets, from rabbis to disciples, from parents to children, and from the people of Israel to the world. We continue this long chain of our tradition as in the presence of his grandparents and parents, Elio receives the Torah as he becomes our Mitzvah.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shema.
Echad Elokeinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Gadol Adonai iti onero shemo yachdav lecha Adonai hagedula vehagivura vehatiferet vehanetza
as a reminder that I now become a responsible member of the Jewish people.
Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen.
Your speech.
Elio, my son, also meaning the sun in the sky. You have the most wonderful smile and infectious laugh that lights up a whole room. Your great-grandmother, my bubby Miriam, also had a lovely smile that would make you grin right back at her. She was always kind when she met people, just as I have seen you be. In fact, I think you added maybe 5 people to your invitation list just in the last week. It is a pleasure to see that your confidence is growing as you are learning to be a good friend to others. When you are ready to join our family 13 years ago, we met Elio Castroneves, the race car driver. We were enamored with his twinkling smile, his extraordinary determination, charisma, and his fabulous sense of style. We decided to change your intended name from Leo to Elio. Just like Elio, you can be resolute to do something once you get it in your head, and you get quite enthusiastic about it. From a young age, you had the eagle eye to laser focus on something that you really wanted to figure out. Your sense of style has always been impeccable, well, minus the sweatpants. You always put your flair into dressing up with a cool hat and complete it with that beautiful smile of yours. When Elio Castroneves is in a race, he has to deal with surprises and things that are out of his control in order to win the race, like crazy drivers and engine malfunctions. Similarly, in our daily lives, we have surprises. In your case, maybe ice skating is not available the night we wanted to go, or maybe somebody in your group isn't doing their job to get the project done. The key is have that creativity and the grit to adapt to those situations that are thrown at us in order to make it through to our goals with grace and kindness above all. Just like your bubby, your grandma, your dad, Tati, your other grandmother, me, and many others in our family, you enjoy giving back to the community in service and leadership. You led your troop in the service coordinator position last year to make sure the needs of the local community were met in the canned food drive, the grounds cleanup, and the delivery of Thanksgiving baskets to those who couldn't afford to otherwise feed their families. Every year, we enjoy adopting a family in need in our Jewish community to make sure they have a happy Hanukkah, complete with gifts. Remember to always give back to others so that your heart will be full. You've come a long way from when you were little. You always said, "Sit next to me, Mommy. Give me a hug, Mommy." We loved our dance parties in the kitchen, and we still do. Our taste in music might be a little different, but we appreciate each other's choices. As you grow up, and I beg you now to spend more time with me and to give me hugs, I love that you have become more independent and want to connect with your friends that you meet. Just always remember to save me a hug.
Is that how you do the snap? First, before I start my speech, I want to thank Rabbi Dennis for coming here out of sabbatical because Ken or Melissa couldn't be here. So I owe you a croissant, or I can make you a croissant, or challah, or bagel, or blueberry muffin. You just let me know. I'll bring it to you. Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. For those of you who know me, I'm and if you've ever done business with me, I'm better at like using illustrations than I am kind of speaking from a speech. So I brought a few pictures to kind of explain this speech and some of the history that we have here and for you getting here. 7 years ago, we wrote ourselves in the Torah, and it was right here. They made a brand new Torah, wrote a Torah with a sofer, and the exact same Torah is the Torah you're about to read from. Do you remember this day?
Barely.
Okay. Do you? And actually, I didn't notice it, but Raphael did a year and a half ago read from that Torah. So I just wanted to point that out. So that was a great thing to read. Good luck. That's a good thing. So we do have a lot of history in this synagogue, and the one thing I've learned is to honor your mother and father. So I remember my mom buying these stained glass windows in the synagogue for her mother and father, Sylvia and Maury. So it was a lot of pride. So my Aunt Jill's here. She came here from California, and she posted this picture of my great-great-grandfather, our great-grandfather, or your great-great-great-grandfather, who is laying the cornerstone of the synagogue here, Beth-El. So that's, he's really sharp dress, nice suit. So we'll have to. So I just wanted to kind of point these things out. And also, I was bar mitzvahed here, actually. I found my bar mitzvah, and I didn't do it near as well as you. And 100 times, you know the story of my bar mitzvah. It was actually, I was 14. You're supposed to be 13, but... So now I'll start my speech that I wrote. I know I have a time limit. Elio, my boy, thank you for getting us up here. You're a great speaker. You're a great speaker. You're a great speaker. On your upcoming amazing speech, thank you and Rabbi that you and Rabbi Jenny wrote from the heart. Take your time. Speak every word slowly, loudly, and stand upright. The people here in the audience are the people that care about you and want to hear every word you say. When you read from the Torah, also speak loudly, stand up straight, and use your focus. We are so excited to be here as you become a bar mitzvah. Your community, family, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, rabbis, cantor, friends, teachers, Raphael, Lee, and I are on this wonderful life experience with you. Standing here is like being on top of a mountain. To get here, you didn't take the chairlift. It's something you slowly climbed up over time with the support of others that love you and you loved back. You are very articulate with the way you speak to people. When you were a toddler, we were driving through Pennsylvania, and you asked us, "Is there a lot of pencils in Pennsylvania?" Then when we drove through Tennessee, you asked, do they play a lot of tennis in Tennessee? It is fun to be your father. You are someone who is smart and uses his brain. What I see in your future is someone that will master a highly technical skill with high barriers to entry, and people will be dependent upon you to solve their problems. Your mom and I will do our best to notice, help, cheer, and advise you on the path you take in life. While we are humble here as we stand before our Creator, I want to tell you that what my dad told me, that you're a member of the Levite tribe that dates back thousands of years. In some synagogues around the world, they still honor us with the second Aliyah. Today, you are going to teach everyone here what the Shemitah year is and why it's so important. Your ancestors and I are so proud to hear you read and teach everyone this meaningful knowledge from the Torah. Mazel tov, we love you. All right.
Thank you, Mom and Dad, for those touching touchstones. It's a beautiful presentation. It brings memories. Good puns, too. I'm going to have to call on Elio in the future.
ויעזור בגן להשאיר לכל הסימבו ונאמר אמן הכל הבו גודל אלוהינו ותנו כבוד לתורה יעמדו ראשון ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו ואתם הדבקים עליכם כולכם היום.
The Torah reading begins on page 742 in the Eitz Chaim Torah commentary, and we are reading from the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, and the reading begins at verse 29. And for the first Aliyah, it's a pleasure to call on Elio's parents, Lee and Ryan Dorman.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen. ואיש כמקור בית מושב עיר חומה והייתה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו ימים תהיה גאולתו ואם לא יגאל עד מלות לו שנת תמימה וקם הבית אשר בעיר אשר לא חומה לצמיתות לקונה אותו לדורותיו לא יצא ביובל ובתי החצרים אשר אין להם חומה סביב על שדה הארץ יחשב גאולה תהיה לו וביובל יצא וערי הלוויים בתי ערי אחוזתם גאולת עולם תהיה ללוויים אשר יגאל מן הלוויים ויצא ממכר בית ועיר אחוזתו ביובל כי בתי ערי הלוויים היא אחוזתם בתוך בני ישראל ושדה מגרש עריהם לא ימכר כי אחוזת עולם הוא להם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tohenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amdu sheni.
For the second Aliyah, we invite grandparents, Susan and Art Rosenzweig, brother Raphael Dorman, and uncle Brett Rosenzweig. Continue with the reading at verse 35, page 743. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ki amuch achicha umatay yado imach v'chezakta bo ger v'toshav v'chai imach al tikach me'ito neshech v'tarvid v'yareita me'elohecha v'chai achicha imach et kaspecha lo titen lo b'neshech Marbihit lotiten ochlan ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eret Mitzrayim latehet lachem et eret Canaan liot lachem leElohim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amdu shlishi.
For the third Aliyah, we invite grandmother Deborah Dorman Nilhagen, grandmother Sharon Dorman, and great aunts Jill Miller and Susan Gilman. There is a Thomas there if you want. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki amuch achicha imach v'nimchar lach lo ta'avod bo avodat eved kesechir ketoshav yeh imach ad shanat hayovel ya'avod imach vayatza me'imach hu vanav imo ושב אל משפחתו ואל אחוזת אבותיו ישוב כי עבדיהם אשר הוצאתי את אותם מארץ מצרים לא ימכרו ממכרת עבד ולא תרדה בו בפרך ויראת מאלוהיך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amdu ready.
For the fifth Aliyah, we invite Melissa Wittenbaum, Elio's aunt, I remember that, bat mitzvah, and cousins Sarah and Jacob Wittenbaum. Verse 44. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu B'Kol Ha'amim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ועבדך ואמתך אשר יהיו לך מאת הגויים אשר סביבותיכם מהם תקנו עבד ועמה וגם מבני התושבים הגרים עמכם מהם תקנו וממשפחתם אשר עמכם אשר הולידו בארצכם והיו לכם לאחוזה והתנחלתם אותם לבניכם אחריכם לרשת אחוזה לעולם בהם תעבודו ובאחיכם בני ישראל איש באחיו לא תרדה בו בפרך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת והיה עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
יעמדו חמישי.
For the fifth Aliyah, we invite Uncle Evan Dorman and Aunt Amanda Vila. I remember those bar and bat mitzvah too. Baruch Adonai Mevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
אמן. וכי תשיג יד גר ותושב עמך ומך אחיך עמו ונמכר לגר תושב עמך או לעקר ממשפחת גר אחרי נמכר גאולה תהיה לו אחד מאחיו יגאלנו או דודו או בן דודו יגאלנו או מי שאר בשרו ממשפחתו יגאלנו או השיגה ידו ונגאל וחישב עם קונהו משנת המכרו לו עד שנת היובל והיה כסף ממכרו במספר שנים כי מי שכיר יהיה עמו.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'Chayei Olam Nata B'Tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
יעמדו שישי.
For the sixth Aliyah, we invite on great uncle Mark Rosen and great aunt Randy Rosen. Reading continues at verse 51.
Baruch hu et Adonai Havarach.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach leolam vaed.
Leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Im obrabot bashanim. Lefihen yashiv geulato mikesef miknato. Ve'imata me'ahat nishar beshanim ad shanat hayovel. והישב לו כפי שנה וישיב את גאולתו כי שכיר שנה בשנה יהיה עמו לא ירדנו בפרך לעיניך ואם לא יגאל באלה ויצא בשנה היובל הוא בניו עמו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nasan lanu tarat emes v'chayei olam nata b'sachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. For the seventh Aliyah, we invite dear friends of the family, Elisa, David, Marissa, and Margot Halley. Margot is our next bat mitzvah at Beth-El Tzedek. And this Aliyah will be read from the Torah by our bar mitzvah, Elio, beginning at verse 55.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ki lihi b'nei Yisrael avadim avadahem asher hotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim ani Adonai Elohechem lo ta'asu lachem elilihim ufesel umatzeva lo takimu lachem Ve'even maskit lo titnu be'artzechem lihishtachavot alecha ki ani Adonai Elohechem et shabtotai tishmoru Elohei umikdashi tirahu ani Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We invite you to rise for the Hatzi Kaddish.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה וילמד יברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
Please be seated as we call our bar mitzvah to the maftir.
יעמוד הבחור אליהו מיכה בן ראובן יעקב ולאה ציפורה בר הר מצווה מפטיר חזק.
Baruch Adonai המבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Ki lihi b'nei Yisrael avadihim avadahim asher hotzeti otam me'eretz Mitzrayim ani Adonai Elohechem. Lo ta'asu lachem elilihim ufesel umatzeva lo takimu lachem ve'even maskit lo titnu be'artzechem lehishtachavot alecha ki ani Adonai Elohechem et shabtatai tishmoru umikdusha tirahu ani Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. We rise for the lifting of the Sefer Torah.
Bezot haTorah asher sa Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai be'ad Moshe. Torah, 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 Siva Moshe. Torah, 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 Siva Moshe. Torah, 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 Siva Moshe. Torah,
Elio will now chant the Haftarah, the selection from the prophets, which on this Shabbat is taken from the book of Jeremiah. You may follow beginning at page 760.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv Moshe avdo uv-Yisrael amo uvin b'ei ha'emet v'tzedek va'epalel el Adonai acharei titi et sefer hamigna el Baruch ben Neriah lemor aha Adonai Elohim, Hine Ata Asita Et HaShamayim Va'et Haaretz B'chachacha Hagadol Uvizroacha Hanatuya Lo Yipale Mimcha Kol Davar Oseh Chesed La'alafihim Shalem Avon Avot El Chek Benechem Acharehem Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Adonai Sebaot Shemo Gadol Ha'etzah V'rav Ha'aliliyah Asher Enecha V'kuchot Al Kol Darchei B'nei Adam Latet La'ish Kidrachav V'chifri Ma'alalav Asher Samta Otot Umoftim Be'eretz Mitzrayim Ad Hayom Hazeh Uvisrael Uva'adam Vata'aseh lach Hashem Kayom Hazeh V'totzeh Et Amcha Et Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim Be'otot Uvmoftim Ubeyad Chazaka Uvizroach Netuyah Uvmora Gadol Vatiten Lachem Et Haaretz Hazot Asher Nishbata La'avotam Latet Lachem Eretz Zachat Chalav Udevash Vayehi Davar Adonai El Yirmiyahu Lemor Hine Ani Adonai Elohei Kol Basar Hamimeni Yipale Kol Davar Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Sorkol Haolamim Sadiq Bechol Hadorot Ha'el HaNe'eman HaOmer Ve'oseh HaMedaber U'Mekayim Shechol Devarav Emet Batzedek Ne'eman Atahu Adonai Eloheinu V'ne'emanim devaracha V'davar echad midvarecha Achor lo yashuv rekam Ki el melech ne'eman V'rachaman atah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el ha'ne'eman b'chol devarav Rahem al Sion ki hi beit hayenu Vela aluvat nefesh toshiyah bimheira ve'amenu Baruch atah Adonai Mesameach Sion bevanecha Shabtotai Samchenu Adonai Eloheinu Be'eliyahu Hanavi Avdecha Uvmalchut Beit David Mashichecha Bimheira Yavo Ve'agel Libenu Al Kiso Lo Yeshev Zar Velo Yinchalu Od Acharim Et Kavodo Ki Veshem Kadshecha Nishbata Lo Shelo Yichben Ero Leolam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Magen David. Al HaTorah, Ve'al HaAvodah, Ve'al HaNevi'im, Ve'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, L'Kiddushah V'Limnucha, L'Chavod U'Letifaret, Al HaKol Adonai Eloheinu, Anachnu Modim Lach, Umvarchim Otach, Yitbarach Shimcha, Befi Kol Hai, Tamid Leolam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov, Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov, Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov. Yeilanu, Yeilanu, Yeilanu,
L'Kol Yisrael, Yekeilanu, Yekeilanu, L'Kol Yisrael. Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov.
Simen Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Simen Tov. Yeilanu.
Mazel Tov, Elio. Ryan, I don't know if you made the connection, but this Haftorah from the prophet Jeremiah is all about you. It's about a real estate transaction. It is. Take a look. And he sold the land, and take these documents, this deed of purchase, the sealed text, and the open one, and put them into the earthen jar. That was the safety deposit box in those days, so that they may last a long time. For thus said the Lord, the God host of Israel. This is a message of hope. Houses, fields, and vineyards shall again be purchased in the land of Israel. There you go. So it was made for you from the prophet Jeremiah. So we are going to return the Torah scroll to the ark. It's my pleasure to invite great aunt and uncle, Steve and Debbie Paul, and cousins Gabe and Becky Paul to open the ark as we return the Torah scroll.
Yeah, hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki nizkav Shemo levado. It's Hayim Levazikima
Go back to your seats. We got Izzy and Zach at no extra charge, and we're delighted to ask you now to be seated because our bar mitzvah is going to share with us his thoughts about the significance of this day in his life.
My Torah portion is Bachar. It is about the Jubilee and Shemitah or sabbatical years. Every 7 years, there is a Shemitah year where the land was allowed to lie fallow. Planting or harvesting were halted so the soil's nutrients could be replenished. Every 50 years, there used to be a Jubilee year where land is returned to its original owners and debts were canceled. These pauses were about an opportunity for return and restoring resources. This year is a Shemitah year, and it is observed in Israel. The Shemitah year of letting the earth rest is important today when we are aware of climate change. The Torah expects us to give the earth a Shabbat every 7 years, just as we have a Shabbat every 7 days. At the beginning of the pandemic, the emissions in the world were drastically lowered when everyone stayed home. This reflects what the Torah is suggesting, because when we stopped working on the land, or now the climate, for even a little bit, it started to heal. If we could find a way to give the climate a rest, the earth might heal a little bit. We should find ways to slow down how much we expect the earth to work, to give it a Shabbat. Perhaps that means slowing down some of our factories for part of the year in a way that would allow the earth to pause from emissions without slowing down our society too much. Perhaps it is energy that doesn't make earth work quite as hard, or reducing our waste. Shemitah to me is about giving the earth and ourselves a rest. It is important to try our hardest but not overwork ourselves, which can lead to losing our motivation or passion for what we love to do. In Torah, humans get a rest day after 6 days of hard work, which is Shabbat. That allows us to recharge ourselves and work smarter. This Torah portion teaches us that the earth also deserves rest to help it to recharge its ability to grow our foods and care for us. I encourage everyone here to give themselves a day of rest every week to be mentally and physically replenished. I would like to thank the people who helped me do the work of getting here today. Rabbi Dennis, thank you for always being there for our family over the years. Rabbi Jenny, thank you for helping me prepare this speech and leading the service today. Cantor Melissa, thank you for helping me learn tefillah and trying to help me carry a tune. Dr. Mishkin, thank you for helping me prepare my Torah and Haftarah portions. You and your cats and dogs really encouraged me during our tutoring sessions. George Kelly and my religious school teachers, thank you for supporting me in my journey of learning about Judaism. Peepaw, thank you for always teaching me life lessons about being street smart. We miss you. Mima, thank you for always going with us to many fun places when I was younger. We always enjoyed seeing you and having fun with you. Papa, thank you for showing me what hard work means. I also admire your fine taste in chocolate. Tati, thank you for showing me how to be kind to others. I will always do my best to be thoughtful toward people. I also love how you always give me the best advice on fashion. Saba, thank you for always playing chess, having mini golf competitions, and always having fun with me. Bubby, thank you for putting a smile on my face with your jokes and your delicious blueberry pie recipe. We also enjoy spending time with you at the beach. Raphael, thank you for being such a great role model for me and always encouraging me to do fun things with you. Mom, thank you for always helping me with homework assignments and Torah practice. You taught me how to put others before myself, and you always cooked great meals for me. You always find time to drive me to my friends' houses and meet up spots. Dad, you taught me about being dedicated to important things and people in my life. You were always there to teach me how to do the fun things you did when you were a kid, like skateboarding and tennis. You would never let me skip out on fun things when I was not in a good mood, and I enjoyed spending the time with you. I am so proud to become a bar mitzvah at Beth-El. Thank you so much for being here to support me today in person or on live stream. Shabbat shalom.
So, Elio, for most young people up here, this is the moment when I tell them to breathe and relax and remember to be proud of themselves. But something tells me, Elio, that you don't have too much difficulty remembering to relax and breathe. because despite the heat that your name might suggest, you have a wonderful and cool, calm demeanor about you, a cool confidence, as your dad said, even when you work towards something that is not natural to you, like becoming bar mitzvah and singing in Hebrew for everyone today. But I hope that within that relaxation and confidence, you do have a true sense of pride in what you've done today and awe at your accomplishment this morning. As you yourself noted, this moment and the work that you have put into it marks your maturing, your readiness to go further in your Jewish future and to begin to take responsibility for your own choices, good and bad. And I want you to take a moment to just recognize the profundity of this moment. You told me that one of the things you like about being Jewish is the uniqueness of it. Some people that you have come across had never met a Jewish person before you, and you got to tell them about it and what makes Judaism special. When you do get to meet another Jewish person, you sense an intimate and immediate bond with them, and you want to connect with them on something that we share. Because Elio, you are someone who loves connecting. Connecting with your friends over your video games and other games. Connecting with your classmates by interviewing them for the yearbook. Connecting to the outdoors with skateboarding or skiing. Connecting to your family on your adventures together and noting how well your parents communicate. It's a wisdom to notice that. And connecting to the world as you figure out how things work in it. You are someone who requires dynamism in your life, no matter what you become, whether that's an engineer, an architect, an auto mechanic, something else we didn't think of, or anything at all. You know that you need things to be a little different each day, that there's always an opportunity for a change. The worst thing for you, you said, would be doing the same thing every day at the same desk. Change, you said, is something you needed. You needed changes all the time. I think your Torah portion actually reminds us of this, and it's therefore a perfect Torah portion for you. The Torah says that even our earth needs to change it up sometimes, needs a reset. The land that gives us so much can't have everything treated the same all the time, year in, year out. We need to give pauses and breaks, as you noted in your speech, and we need to make changes to protect creation. Elio, we live in a world that fears change, but you embrace it. And here you come with the wisdom to say that sometimes we could thrive on change, on reset, on pauses, and rethinking a problem. Elio, my blessing and my hope for you is that you always use humor for growth. I know you're a funny guy. And that you seek adventures in ways that will continue you on your path to maturity. And that you always maintain a smiling and cool demeanor, even as you greet the world with your greatness. I'm going to let Rabbi Dennis also offer some blessings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me ask you guys to stand over there so that I can see you face to face. Here we go. Put Elio in the middle of the two of you, and soon I'm going to send you over there. So that's. There we go. This thing my mask gets caught at the temples, you know. Well, Elio, I know that this is a very special moment, not only for you, but for your family, your great-great-grandparents, your great-grandparents, all the way back on various sides of the family were Beth-El Tzedek founders. The Beth-El Tzedek values of leadership and commitment to Judaism have been transmitted to you by your parents. And like your brother Raphael some years ago, you today assume the mantle of Jewish leadership that your family hands to you. And Rabbi Sandy and I are privileged to have officiated at so many families' baby namings and brises and consecrations and bar and bat mitzvahs and confirmations and weddings and sometimes, unfortunately, funerals over many generations of your family. So this moment fills me with a sense of my own history here at the synagogue. Elio, as had already been observed, I am sure you know that your name comes from the word for son. We live in a sun-centered system that we call heliocentric. We could say that this Shabbat is Elio-centric, and you are the center star. We know that you will continue to provide much light, light of joy and light of pride to your parents, to your family, to this congregation and community in the years ahead. And it is my honor to pronounce a blessing as you become bar mitzvah on this day, in this place where your family has celebrated many, many Jewish simchas. משברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב ואמותינו שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את אליהו מיכה בן ראובן יעקב ולאה ציפורה, אשר עלה היום לקריאת התורה וההפטרה, לאות הבעת רצון לחיות חיים ראויים לבן ישראל. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless you, Elio, Micah, Dorman, who have today been called to the reading of the Torah and the Haftarah in token of your desire and your commitment to live a worthy Jewish life. May God, who was with you from birth and enabled you to grow to your present stature in body and in spirit, continue to be with you in the life that is ahead. May you grow in health and in strength, in wisdom and humility, in love and in loyalty, in faith and in courage, that you may ever be a joy to your parents, an honor to your people, a credit to your country, and a true servant of God. And let us say, Amen. I'd like to ask you and all the family to join in a Shehecheyanu, a blessing for happy occasions. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Amen. Mom and Dad, put your hands on Elio, around his shoulder, on his shoulder. There you go, with a talit, and we offer the traditional blessing. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'ishmerecha, may God bless you and keep you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka, may God be gracious to you and show you kindness. Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasem lecha shalom, may God shine upon you, and you may shine on the world, and live a life of health, of joys, and of peace. Amen. You may kiss the bar mitzvah on either cheek there. There you go. Mom, since you're closest, could you go and take that bag? It contains gifts from the synagogue, the men's club, the sisterhood, the rabbis, the cantor, the federation, to mark the significance of this day. These are text of Torah, prayer book, tzedakah box, and other aids that will help you in your Jewish life, and they come in the form of your backpack for your ongoing Jewish journey. Mazel tov. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You want to go and sit with your parents for the rest of the service? We'll give you a reprieve.
Thank you for the blessing.
Let us turn to the conclusion of the service, page 205, as we rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gidula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot adama. Shelo sam chelkeinu kahem vegor aleinu kechol hamonam v'anamnu chorim u'mishrachamim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim הכתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
We invite mourners and those who observe the yahrzeit of a loved one to remain standing for the mourner's Kaddish. Donnie informed me last night of the recent death of his dear sister Judy, so we add her to our list of remembrance. Judy Katz, as in the loving presence of family and friends, we offer the words of the Kaddish. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra kir'uteh ve'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uve'yomechon uv'hayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ule'olmei olmaya. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומן ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דא אמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. May God, the source of peace, grant comfort to all who are bereaved, peace to Israel and to all humanity. And let us say amen. Please be seated. It's my pleasure to call on Rob Kirsch, officer of our board of directors, to extend greetings and make some announcements.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom. As the treasurer of the synagogue, I'm so happy to be able to offer the family and to Elio congratulations and greetings from the officers and the board of directors. You did a wonderful job. I want to give you some personal thoughts, though, as well. To me, maybe the two most important things about being Jewish is family and tradition. And you and I share family. We're lucky in that way. Your great-grandfather and my grandmother were brother and sister, which means that your grandfather and my mother were first cousins, so we're cousins. And that's one of the most wonderful things about being Jewish is all of the family and how family-centric Judaism is. You have all this family here who has come from far and wide to celebrate this momentous occasion with you, and you're very lucky about that. And tradition is also very important. And I will tell you that 40 years and 2 months ago, I stood exactly right here, and I had my bar mitzvah with this same rabbi. I didn't mean to date you, Rabbi, but you understand.
I had just had my bar mitzvah the year before.
Right, I'm sure. So Judaism is a lot about tradition, and sometimes it's just something that I want you to always remember, that what we do is something that our people have been doing for thousands of years, and it's important to continue it. And I hope that this is the first day that you really continue that tradition for our people. It's an important part of being a Jew and being a part of our synagogue. I have a few announcements for you, and that is that the Erev Shavuot services will be Saturday, June 4th at 6 p.m. Join us as we celebrate the confirmation of our 10th grade class and honor Rabbi Jenny, who's going to be moving to Maryland and being the head rabbi at a synagogue there. We'll miss her, but we're glad to see that she's moving on and moving up. The Shavuot and Yitzchak service will be Sunday, June 5th at 10 a.m. Well, also, Congregation Beth-El Zedek is proud to celebrate Pride activities in Indianapolis. There'll be a virtual Pride Shabbat on Friday, June 10th at 6 p.m. That'll be via Zoom. And 5 p.m.?
That wouldn't be.
Oh, 5 p.m. Okay. That's Friday, June 10th at 5 p.m. via Zoom. And there'll be a Pride Parade on Saturday, June 11th. More information is available on the Jewish Federation of Greater Indianapolis website. Thank you all for being here. Elio, congratulations. Your parents are some of my favorite people in your family. Congratulations and Mazel Tov. Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks, Rob. We're going to close the service with the singing of Adon Olam. You may follow on page 205.
11.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'itnasa V'hefso Kol
Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Beyado Afkid Ruchi Beiti Shon Be'ahira Ve'im Ruchi Geviati Adonai Li Ve'lo
Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov. Thank you all for joining us. Shabbat Shalom.